So do you feel smothered by your parents? It's very common. Unfortunately, it's a normal dynamic that because we don't teach about parenting, it creates something that's called smother love, or the more clinical term is enmeshment, enmeshment, enmeshment. Unfortunately, we as a society have true love, what true parenting and true love looks like, very confused. You can see this example on Facebook all the time. You'll see mothers and fathers post of how their child is growing up and how sad it is and how they miss the days when they were a little kid and they could just love them all up. What you're seeing, it's normal to have a sense of, oh, my child's growing up, but our role as parents is for them to grow up and leave the nest. But that hunger to keep them small, to keep them ours, that's a red flag. And so what that is a parent who themselves were either codependently or raised in an enmeshed environment. And so they don't know how to be vulnerable anymore. And so they actually use the child to feed them emotionally. Think of it this way. Think of an umbilical cord going in the reverse direction. The umbilical cord is meant to feed the child, but in a smother love or enmeshed dynamic, it's the opposite. Mom and or dad actually need the child to make them feel good. So you'll see this with parents that they'll get so sad when their child isn't around because they miss them. They miss that connection. Well, that's what your husband and spouse is for, or that's what friends are for. It's not your child's job to make you feel safe and protected and loved and cared for. It's our job to do that for them. So you see any parent who feels that need of their child to that degree, what you're experiencing is smother love or enmeshment. Okay? And so this can happen in many situations. If your parent was an addict or has health issues, they will make the child take care of them, make them responsible for their addiction. Or say there was a divorce, they'll become the confidant and share all the intimate details. They become the best friend. You'll see this, you have adults that, are in their 20s and 30s, and they're talking to mom and her dad, 2-3 hours a day, every single day. They don't make decisions without mom or dad. And they actually, the adult will now feel, the adult child will feel guilty if they go pursue their own life, because mom and dad will be passive aggressive or manipulative, even abusive, gaslighting about how selfish it is they aren't there to take care of mom or dad. And so the child, could be of any age, even 40s, 50 years old, feels incredibly guilty and bad for not being at their parents' disposal 24/7. I mean, there's a story from a book, that has all this research in it, of a man who was so afraid to upset his mother. He's married in his 40s, and every night for years he would go home and eat dinner with his mother before going home and eating dinner with his family. And he became obese. After, I can't remember, it's 10, 12, 15 years, they finally found out that's what he was doing. Now, you may not be in a situation like that, but here's the key. If you ever feel guilty or bad at pursuing your own life, that you've somehow neglected your parents and you're a bad child, you've been smothered. You've been enmeshed. If you were the golden child, if you were constantly praised for being the perfect kid, that's enmeshment, okay? And this is, like I said, this is a very common dynamic. We get it confused with a loving parent. It's not. It is massively abusive. And most people just aren't aware of this. And so what you're going to see, hallmarks for you, if you wonder if you've been smothered or enmeshed with, is in your intimate relationships, like most likely you complain about how clingy people are. You're seeing this, I'm seeing a massive influx as the dynamic shifts, of men and women go out in the workforce. And the high rate of divorce, mothers especially have become enmeshed with their children. And so that's the rise of breast cancer. I know this sounds crazy, but every client I've ever dealt with who has breast cancer, they always had almost always a mother who smothered them. When they learn boundaries, the cancer heals. And that's what really causes breast cancer, is smother love. I don't have time to get into the details of that. But so what happens is when you go to pursue relationships, when a request for intimacy comes in, it can be intellectual, emotional, sexual, even non-sexual. You're like, God, he or she is too clingy. She wants to talk too much. She wants to touch me all the time. He wants to hold my hand. He just won't leave me alone. And you feel that sense of being smothered. Well, you learned that in childhood. It's not that you're just a distant person who likes their boundaries and likes their individuality. We all need connection. And so if you're constantly feeling that sense of being smothered, well, you're just projecting that enmeshment that you went through in childhood that you've never dealt with on to the person who's trying to pursue you. And the solution to this, there's a couple. One, go get help. Like, I'm serious. This dynamic, this codependence, and this enmeshment is incredibly damaging and incredibly difficult to deal with. And here's what will make it hard for you to go get help with this is it gives you so much power to have a parent need you that much. It creates a child who's what's called over-empowered. And so they'll be in many times very proficient, get lots of stuff done, make money. And so they have this sense of, why do I need help? I've got the world by the tail. Well, but they don't have intimacy and connection in their life. They'll keep themselves so busy so they don't have to feel the pain of that emptiness that's behind it. And so it can be very difficult to treat someone like this. But if this is ringing true and you're feeling some pushback, you need to work with an expert like myself or a counselor or somebody to help you with that. The other thing is learn to say no. I'm going to tell you a story of my mother. My mother enmeshed with me. My mother was an alcoholic. And one of the things she used to do when she'd be drunk is she'd say, Kenny, can you just hug me the next time I want to drink so I don't drink? So what she did inadvertently was she made me responsible for her sobriety. She also would come to me about the difficulties in the marriage with my father, and I became her emotional confidant. Well, I'm a kid. I'll do anything. But that level of suffocation was horrific. And it's even to this day, there are times in relationships where I want to pull away. I get that panic feeling from my mother. Now I've learned the skills and tools of how to move through that so I can connect. But here's what I had to learn with my mother. And it's kind of a cute story, actually. When I'd gone through recovery and learned about all this stuff, my mom used to call me nonstop until I picked up the phone. All right? Badger me to pick up the phone. And one time she did, I think it was, 13, 14, 15 times, just one after the other. And it's always in a manipulative message, too, of, I need to speak to you. So you're sitting there going, oh, what if something's wrong? Like, that's the manipulation. That's how they suck you in. But I'd learned about this. And so I called her back and I said, Mom, I got your messages. And I really appreciate how much you love me and how much you want to talk to me. But I need to let you know something about me and how I work. What I've realized about myself is when someone calls me over and over and over, it actually really scares me. It's an issue I'm still working on. And my natural reaction is to want to push them away. Now, I'm still working on that, Mom. It's not your responsibility that I react that way. But I want to let you know that if you want a response from me, what works best is to just call me once and leave a message. And when it works for me, and I'm in a place to call you back, I guarantee you I will call you right away. Now, you don't have to do anything different, Mom. You can keep doing what you're doing, but I'm letting you know that because of my own issues, if you want to speak to me, that's the fastest way to get in touch with me. Well, my mom's so adorable and so manipulative. It was hysterical. I don't know what it was. A week later or something, she calls me and she's like, hello, Kenny, it's your mother. I'd like to talk to you. And I'm only going to leave one message. I mean, there's so much manipulation in that, but it was adorable too. I mean, no one taught my mom this stuff, and no one taught your parents this either. But I learned to say no, and do you hear how I explained it? I didn't yell and scream at my mom, you've enmeshed with me, you're hurting me. I didn't make her responsible. See, now I'm the adult. It's my responsibility to heal that. So I went and did it. So I took full ownership that I have the reaction because nobody ever makes us feel anything. We choose that. That's a hallmark of codependence. If you ever say, they made me feel, think, or do anything, then you've been enmeshed with, you've been raised codependently. And see, I learned that. And so I took full ownership that it's my feelings inside that I have to fix. But I made the request of what works for me. And you can't control them, you can't make them different, but that's the only way you'll change the dynamic. So if this rings true for you, if you feel like, my God, I never knew that the connection and my parents' hunger to see me and talk to me and you know, how they're manipulative and how I feel guilty if I don't do what they want or if I'm not there for them, that if I pursue my own life, I'm somehow a bad kid even though I'm 20, 30, 40 years old. Now you know what's going on, and now you know you have to get with a professional to heal this. And you have to learn to start setting healthy boundaries, learn to say no. If that's something you need more information on, I know this can be scary. Send me a private message. I'll be happy to give you some books that'll help you. And if you need it, work with you on overcoming it. So please, this isn't a judgment of your parents. Again, we don't teach this stuff. They're doing the best they can. But what they are doing is abusive. And so if you find yourself, you're one of the, maybe you're a parent and you're going, oh my God, that's what I do to my child. I'm one of those Facebook mom or dads who just is heartbroken that my child is growing up. Like I remember I saw on Facebook this woman took her child to college and literally every 45 minutes was posting about her daughter's first week. She spent the first week in college with her daughter. Like that's so toxic. If that's you, you're not a bad person. You just are hurting. And there's some great tools that can turn that around. And you can learn to love your child the way you wanted to and the way they deserve. So I hope that helps you. I hope you're having a great day.